The journey from founder to executive is really tough. And the reason it's so tough is because in the middle, there's this really awkward stage where you're expected to be everyone's manager. And for most of us, that's a new skill. But the reason it's hard isn't what you think. It's not about learning a new job. It's that being a manager requires you to be good at 4 jobs. And so today, we're going to talk about the 4 roles that you need to be good at as a manager, as a leader of your team. We're going to talk about the biggest pitfall where most people screw it up today on how to do startup sales. As a founder, as an operator, and as an advisor, I have seen the $0 to $100 million journey 3 times. And I know the people that are on that journey to scale are often being pushed in totally new directions. I know there's a lot of pressure on you, the founder, to be able to get to that scale very quickly. And a lot of the pressure is around doing this new role of manager where everyone is looking up to you. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do. In my case, after I was a startup operator, I was a VP of sales at a YC-backed data company. I looked to the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute to learn about how to make leaders even better at their jobs. And the very first workshop on the very first day blew my mind. And so I'm going to share with you what the facilitator of that session offered us and something that we call the role of the leader. The first box I want to talk to you about is the supporter. As a manager, your job is to support your people. You probably already know that. And part of that is going to be your people needing a place to come and just vent about what challenges are going on in their department, what challenges are going on in their career, what challenges are going on in the market. So when you create that space, you're actually playing a different role than just general manager. You're playing the role of the supporter. You're allowing that space, letting them vent. You're not asking a lot of questions, and you're not telling anyone what to do. Now, take that and let's go across to the opposite box, the role of the mentor. When someone comes to you with a problem and they say, this is the challenge I've got, maybe they're working on a new product or maybe they're doing a launch and they're saying, hey, the launch is delayed and here's what the challenge is. What they're doing is they're looking to you as the manager and as the founder to play the role of a mentor. When you're playing the role of the mentor, that's a little bit of, let me ask you what questions on what's going on, and let me tell you what I would do if I were you. A lot of times that's from drawing on your personal experience. Hey, when I was a senior product manager at this last company I was at before we started this thing, here's how I would have solved this problem. And hopefully that's helpful. And that person goes off to go hopefully solve the problem. Take it down to the bottom right. This is the role of the advisor. This is the consultant. This is the person who is always right. Low ask, not many questions, and high tell. Let me tell you how to do it. This manager does really well at a Starbucks. If you're a barista and you're saying, hey, what's the temperature the milk should be? And the manager says it needs to be 137 degrees every time. Don't be late. You've got 12 seconds in the drive-thru. That is very specific advice. That's advisory work. That's telling you this is what you have to do to make that drink. And it is also one of the roles that we're expected to do as startup leaders, as founders, as managers. We are often looked at as the person who should know how to do it. But you don't have to do this job very long to know you don't have all the answers, even when your people are looking at you to have all the answers. And you're going to need to put that hat on a time or two. If you know me, you know that I'm slightly biased about this last box. This is someone who's going to ask you great questions, create a space to solve a problem, and not do a lot of telling you what to do. This is the role of the coach. And as a manager, as the founder, as the leader of your team, you're often going to have the opportunity to put this hat on. But the biggest challenge can be deciding if it's time to coach, if it's time to mentor, if it's time to support and just create that space, or it's time to just give the advice, give the direction, be the consultant. Here's how to do it. This is something that you have to decide as a leader. How are you going to show up and how are you going to do what your people need you to do? You may look at these boxes and think, Jay Ryan, look, those 4 roles are great. I think I can do them. I should just go back to work, turn this video off. Please stop, ignore that temptation because there's actually a real pitfall to each of these. And let's talk about them a little bit. The supporter. If you create the space for your people to go ahead and vent, oftentimes that leads to gossip. That leads to creating a space and a culture where people are complaining. We don't want that. We want people to be supported. We want people to go out and kick ass and do great jobs. But we also know that they need to occasionally hit that vent switch. Okay, so we know that we can't support all the time. We can't always create that space for no ask, no tell. And let somebody just complain. What do we do about that? All right, so we're going to mentor. Here's what I would do if I were you. Well, that creates some challenges as well. Oftentimes the mentor, they're saying, here's what I would do if I were you. Well, that limits them to an experience and knowledge base, or their own training model is limited by the things that they've done. And if you're the person deciding to mentor your team, you're limited as well to just what you already know, what you've already experienced, what you've already come in contact with. I have worked with founders who only have a mentor switch, and it's really challenging because you know when they haven't had experience with a problem and they're just making it up, it can be really frustrating, and you can actually turn a lot of people off when you're scrambling to figure out what it is they need. Okay, well, now let's talk about the advisor. What's the downside of being an advisor? Advisors are smart, they know what to do, they can tell us what to do. Well, it may work great if you're a barista and you need to know from your manager what the temperature of the milk should be, but the truth is, that type of role is micromanagement in a lot of other contexts and a lot of settings. So when somebody comes and they say, hey, I'd like your help solving this problem, the release is going to be delayed, and you say the release needs to be on Tuesday, you're not doing X, you're not doing Y, let me take over, that's micromanagement. That's that like whip and a stick type of management that doesn't often work well with knowledge workers. Okay, well, let's talk about the coach. So Ryan must be saying that coaching is the best box. Well, coaching's not the best box. It's not the box for everybody. It's the box that I operate out of most of the time. But the reason for that is the coach creates space and asks great questions. The dark side, though, is that can sound really passive aggressive. Like, what temperature do you think the milk should be at? That's not that helpful if I got 32 seconds before somebody wants their coffee and they're driving to the drive-thru. That's not helpful at all. So let's back up a step. If all of these boxes have a negative side, there's a challenge for you to figure out, what do my people need? And I think there's two shortcuts to figuring that piece out. Shortcut one is to ask them. Draw this chart on the whiteboard for them, hand them the pen, say, hey, where would you like our next one-on-one to be? How can I help? Explain these roles, see what they choose. You'll be surprised. A lot of people want to choose that advisor box. They just want to know what you want them to do. But as they get more comfortable, they're going to choose coaching more than they choose advisory. Often. I've seen it a bunch. The next thing you can do is to get opt-in. Now, when I say opt-in, you might be thinking about your latest marketing campaign, but what I'm actually talking about is having a very intentional, aware conversation with the employee on your team to ask them what they need. If you start coaching, it can be really passive aggressive. Ask them to opt into that. Spend time with people and say, not just what box do you want to be in, but actually create space by giving examples. Would you like me to tell you how I would have done it in the past? Would you like me to tell you what I think the parameters are as your manager and just tell you what to do? Or would you like me to create some space, ask some questions because you're closest to the problem, where you can decide what to do? Now, if you're thinking, okay, well, great, I get it. I think I can coach more than I am today, but I don't know how. Well, here's 3 easy ways to become a better coach. Number 1, get a coach. Having a coach means that you'll be going through these challenges yourself, and you'll be leaning on somebody who's an outside third party who can help you push forward in a really confidential space by using great questions. Having that experience is going to make you a better coach. Number 2, there are a lot of places that offer coaches training to continuing professionals. You don't have to be choosing to be a life coach or a career coach or an executive coach. You can actually go through some of these programs and then go back to work and keep doing what you're doing. And the third option, which I highly recommend everybody do, is actually just check out this book. This book is called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier. MBS says a few things in this book that are really impactful for someone who's a new coach, but the cheat sheet is he offers 7 questions that make you a better coach. And so practice these questions, and for sure it will lead you down a path to creating the autonomy that your team needs to own the problems and make really, really, really good decisions, which means they come out of the way as roadblocks as you scale, because they're going to build their own teams. They're going to take on their own challenges, and they're going to come back even stronger as leaders for you and allow you to move from founder to executive. If you thought this was helpful, please share it with a friend.